Good afternoon. I want to, this presentation is going to be about media, not only for Beulah Worship Center, but for those individuals who are interested in creating content for themselves through social media, and also ways of, if you're creating any kind of electronic communication, whether it be doing a Zoom presentation or things of that nature, this presentation should be beneficial to you. The focus of this is going to be primarily on video production, improving your professionalism, and also, boosting your creativity when it comes to content creation. So, my background on how I got to this point, I started out in media in undergrad and college working as a broadcast major. Ended up working for CBS as a technical director for years and doing some work with Jefferson Pilot as an independent technical director and shooting sports and things of that nature. But my main thing was working for CBS as a technical director. And I went from that to working for myself and creating my own production company. And a long story short is sort of how I ran into Bishop with here for Missions for the Nations and Beulah Worship Center. So we got connected. As a matter of fact, we just saw the young lady that connected us, and it was such a blessing because ever since that time, I think now it's been about, this might make almost 10 years on the dot. Since we made that connection. And it's been a beautiful thing because I've learned so much from him, and I've hoped I've shared enough with Bishop to learn from me. But Bishop was doing media way before I got here. And one of the funniest stories was he kind of gave me a tour of this place. And I'll be honest with you, someone told me when I was coming here, it's like, well, he got a studio in Conway. And I'm like, there's no studio in Conway. That's the way I'm thinking. I was like, there's no studio in Conway. So I came here, and long story short, he gave me a tour of what he had been doing prior to me getting here. And I just looked at him like, where did you go to school at? Who taught you this, right? And he said, I taught myself. So it was amazing just to see how much work, and I don't know the process, and I know he can share that information with you, and sometimes he has, of how he had gotten to the point where we at. But that's how I end up here at Beulah, and so this video is going to be designated for people that's working with the media now, and for individuals that may be seeing this video in the future of what they can do to enhance not only the production here at Beulah, but for themselves in the future. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, okay. So one of the first things I want to talk to you about. So there are three forms of media. Let me go back. You can stay on that slide where you're at right now. Pre-production, production, and post-production. And I don't care if it's a full-blown service like we have here on Sunday mornings or on Thursdays when they do prayer and any kind of media, you're going to need these three forms. Pre-production, production, and post-production. You can go to the next slide. So, and these are the bases of what this presentation will be about. So, when you talk about pre-production, you have to develop a team. And, the responsibilities, and I get real technical in this presentation and in this PowerPoint, but a lot of this stuff, the way I'm going to describe it is if you had a team of 15 people or you were working this by yourself. Because obviously, if you were doing this by yourself, you would carry multiple hats, but if you got a full-blown production, and on Sunday we have an average of 4 to 5 people, 4 upstairs, 1 on camera, and then you have a couple of media people downstairs on the computer. So you're talking about 8 people easily, and we can use a lot more to get even more technical and even increase our production. But as you will see as I go along, there's some of the stuff that you can do with 1 or 2 persons. And when we're upstairs, we carry or use multiple responsibilities. But you would need a director. Obviously, the talent or performer or the individuals or you guys are doing praise and worship, whether you guys doing announcements or we in a full-blown service. And Bishop is moving back and forth. I wish he could, I always say, I say to myself, and I don't think I ever told Bishop this, but man, if I could put like some steps, the counter during service, I know he would break that thing, man. He would break that thing because he'd be going. So you got to keep up with Bishop. So camera work is hard. So, we have an audio person, obviously camera people, and computer imaging individuals, and those are the people that are putting the names up, putting up the graphics and things of that nature. And depending on how deep your team is, you can have someone specifically working on lighting, changing the mood for the scenery, from praise and worship to full-blown service, to announcement time, to altar call, you name it. There's some productions that I've seen, and you're talking about real big mega churches, man. They got a whole setting, light setting for every part of the actual church service. So in pre-production, the main thing is you have a brainstorm. Ideally, the way you want this to work is prior to service, you want to meet and make sure that everything that's going to happen in that service, we know about in a production meeting and we're prepared. And I'll give you an example. A lot of times, Bishop is if you attend Beulah, I would say once or twice a month, he's going to have a prop, and and there's always a different type of prop. I've come in here and saw all types of stuff. I think the funniest things I've seen, I'm like, because it goes to my imagination, like, what he's going to do with this. I come in here and see a full-blown mannequin in here, and I'm like, yeah, we own it, And so he's had, mannequin, all different types of stuff. But these are the type of stuff that you would talk about, in a pre-production meeting. So what you're going to do, what you're going to see, and even more important, when you get down, really get technical, and this is where I would love to elevate our services and get to the point where, when praise and worship is singing, when we know who's going to lead a song, when we know that camera's going to be on that person because they're going to lead a song, or they're going to be doing something different, or we may have a praise worship or dance crew, they do the dance, praise dance and that type of stuff. All of those stuff would be discussed in your pre-production meeting. Anything that's going to happen, something that we need to put on the back of the big screen, on the side screen, anything that we're expecting to happen, even if there's going to be a baptism after service, all of these different things need to be discussed in your pre-production meeting. It doesn't take long because the majority of the stuff, I would say 80 and 90% of the stuff, are kind of repetitive from previous service. We're going to have praise and worship, we're going to have altar call and things of that nature. But everything is planned. If you see on the bottom of the slide, I said leave room for the Holy Ghost. And what that means is it's not going to always go as planned. And there have been times that I've been to Beulah where, we still had a full-blown church service, but the spirit was so high prior to service even getting started, coming out of praise and worship. It's like that took an extra 10 to 20 minutes, and everybody was like, I'm like, man, I don't know where they're going to go at from here, because the spirit was so high. And so you prepare for that too. So it's not as technical, or by the time as we do, where I came from working in television, where everything has to be down to the second, or we lose money not running a commercial on time or something like that. You want to have that level of preparedness in production in your pre-production meeting, but you always have to allow time for the spirit to move and for extended parts of the service. So that's what you would do with your pre-production team. Now, Your pre-production team, this slide here, the next slide, you could have as many as you see. I got the producer, director, technical director. All of these different type of people can be in a big type of production meeting team. But in most cases, and especially if you're someone creating content, you're probably all of those people. You're all of those people. Because you're timing the show, you're the director, you're actually recording it yourself. When something goes wrong, you're the engineer. You're fixing the lights in your home or wherever your office is, or if you're outside, you're angling the light for yourself. You're telling yourself where to be as a flow director. You're checking your audio. You're doing the cameras. Assistant director and the operator on the computer as a CG person, putting your name and all of that stuff. You does all of that, and you yourself is the talent. I've seen Bishop do all of that by himself. Not only prior to me coming here, but if he decided to go live on vMix, he's doing all of that stuff himself. So he is his own production team. So you can have a team of 12, 14 people, or you can be the team yourself. But this is the type of, expertise that you want to have in place. And I say the crew is only as strong as the weakest link, meaning that you want to make sure that we bring everybody up to speed and make sure everybody is educated. And I think we got a great relationship here with the staff that we have, where everybody's interested in not just learning one thing, but learning multiple things to make us strong. So let's go to the next slide. So now is the second segment. After we got out of pre-production, now you're talking about the production yourself. And this is actually showtime. This is when the service is actually started. So you're out of pre-production, you're actually in the service itself, and so you're following your script. Everybody knows their responsibilities, and following the rundown is planned, and communication is key. And knowing who is talking, doing the service from upstairs and sending message and rechanging audio, all of these different things are key. So you want to have those defined roles in your pre-production meeting so that when you get into production, you don't have any confusion and you don't have everybody giving directions, because once the show starts, it only should be a couple of people sending down directions of what needs to change. Most of the time, that's either coming from Bishop or myself when it comes to production. And we want to make sure everybody is getting the information and stuff that we need so everything can run smoothly. And then, as you go through production, my thing is always to look at when we're having service, we are the connection, or you are going to be the connection between what's happening here to what's happening at the home. And they can't see everything. So the only way they can see everything is if we make sure that it's shown. And so you always have the perspective of, I'm always thinking like, if I'm at home watching this, what do I want to see? So obviously it's very simple during praise and worship. You're watching this, but sometimes if you're sitting in the audience, you're not looking at praise and worship. You're going to be looking at what Jason is doing on the keyboard, because Jason is hammering it down and you're just like, wow, he's into it. And you may be looking at the drummers just the same. And sometimes you may be looking at your neighbor sitting beside you in service. And so you want to try to capture all of that for the person that is at home. So you become the eyes and ears for everybody who's watching the broadcast to make sure that they get the same experience that everybody who is in the sanctuary is getting. So it's very key to not just you. We enjoy the service. I know last Sunday when Bishop probably came in doing praise and worship, because they were singing a couple of songs that I just loved them singing, you forget that you're up there doing what you're supposed to be doing, because you get into the music, you get into the sound, especially when they're singing something that you really like to hear. And so you have to focus on that, but you also have to be reminded of the people at home and who's watching. Any kind of announcements that you guys have, is very important that we get it out there, because that's the way that they're going to see it. So after production, let's go to the next slide. So this is an example of what I was talking about earlier, because most of this stuff we're talking about is if you're working here, full production, doing media here, but a lot of times we're in the era of content creation, and a lot of people are creating content. I use this slide as an example of when I said to shrink down the team. This person is actually using a window as her lights. They have one camera, they have a laptop, and that's them, and they're actually having a production. So you don't always, when you're trying to get your message out and working in the media, have to have all of those things, because you may be doing this on your own, and especially, I don't want to ramble, but especially after COVID, I learned a lot when everyone was on lockdown. And now I don't work in media no more. I am a behavior psychologist, and a lot of my work, I was fortunate it didn't stop, but a lot of it became digital. So I wasn't going out and seeing my clients as a therapist. I wasn't going out and doing psychiatric drug reviews. We were doing it, but we were doing it on Zoom and from a distance. And so I made it a point, as if this country ever go through some form of lockdown again, and I kind of feel it coming, y'all, to be prepared. So her setup is similar to what I had to make sure, that I did at home by having a camera and having the ability to communicate with people, because we're past the technological age. We're actually in the artificial intelligence age. And so you're going to have to do things remotely. So it's very important not only to learn this skill here, but for yourself in content creating. But you're going to still need those 3 steps if you want to be as professional and have yourself presented the way you would like to. So I'll go to the next slide. And this next slide, it is very similar, even smaller setup. And I will tell you this, those cameras today, that back-end camera that's facing outward, is just as good as any camera you can get. These cameras on these phones are amazing. And there are several content creators that I meet with a group of content creators once a month, no, 3 times a month, and I can tell you they use that phone and create amazing content. If you know the technology, if you have the proper apps, and you know how to edit, I know huge YouTubers who can do just about everything from their phone. Pre-production, production, and editing. Because some of them, their productions is so good, they don't have to do a lot of editing. The greater you come in, the less work you got to do in the back end, where all they have to do is just delete the front part and the back part, and they can upload it to whatever social media platform, and you would never know it at home, and they're doing it all on their phone. Them and a couple of their buddies got using their content on their actual, whether it be an iPhone or a Samsung type of device. So the last part, which is the segue, is post-production. This is after you done did everything. So we were looking at the service, so this is after the service is over. You go back, and it's time for editing, because Bishop has a variety of things that he posts on, whether it be YouTube or any other social media platform. There could also be him providing, what's the thing called? Man, I know it. There's so much people on that app. It's an audio, what's the thing? Could be on Spotify. It could be any of these. Yes, there's so many ways now to put your information out. So when you finish with production and you start getting into editing, this is how you edit for the different platforms and evaluating your success. I think it's on the next slides. So let me make sure. You guys have any questions before I go through this last part? Pretty good? So the question is, why would we need a light for the praise and worship team and a light for Bishop? Well, because you want to make sure, obviously you want everybody to get their own individual light. Technically, you want everybody to get that feel. It's a 3-light setup where you have a key light, which is directly on the individual. So everybody need their own individual light. Then you have a light for the background. For these cameras, now these cameras today are a lot better than when that original setup was established. But you try to have as much lighting as you can, so the camera itself, well, obviously for the people in the sanctuary to see, but so the camera doesn't have to work so hard to figure out what's going on. So Bishop would need a camera, the drummer actually, not camera, light. Praise and worship would have a light, and there's a light focused on almost just about everybody. As a matter of fact, now I know you've been up here. The first time you came up here, it's like, whoo, it's a lot of lights, right? It takes some adjustments to get to, but it's designed, and so they actually have the perfect setup where that would be your key, that's your fill light, and that's your actual backlight. So me looking up into it just now just blind myself. So, but the editing process, obviously you need an editor. A lot of the editing is not as hard as it used to be. It's not as raw. You can actually use a lot of softwares to really help with your editing. I got softwares right now that you can purchase that take any video that you do and make it a video short, like a YouTube short. It'll cut it down in that phone format. It'll actually provide you with text running off under the bottom. It'll provide you all of that stuff, and it'll do it in 5 minutes. Whereas something like that in the past would have took me probably an hour or two. Yeah, all you have to do is upload it, and it will get you straight in about. Matter of fact, it'll take a whole service and provide you from that service. It'll edit down, and you can get like 30 different YouTube shorts. You just decide the one that you want to use and upload it. So the technology today is very helpful and very beneficial, and so let me go to this last slide. In this kind of discussion, but since we won't be doing too much of that, I would just say this is designed for individuals who are interested in content creation. My suggestion to them, in my experience with content creation, I do create some forms of content. I do have a YouTube page. I don't promote it because soon as I think I started my YouTube, my personal business just blew up. So it'll be there, and I'll, create content as I go along, but I just don't have the time for it. And you really have to be dedicated for it. And you really have to because if you're going to stay ahead of what's going on along with the competition. So a lot of times people ask the question, they want to do content creation. I always say do what you know and you like, and also find a reason to stand out within that. So just say you like cooking, but you're a college student. You don't have a kitchen like Bishop. So what do? This young guy has large following. His channel, and my daughter showed me his channel, it's called Cooking in the Dorm Room. He creates different meals that college students can create in the dorm room while they're in college. So you have to be creative. Not as creative where you just sitting here and just trying to figure this thing out. A lot of it has to do with you just being yourself, because that's your creativity. Your uniqueness may be your voice. That may be all you need to differentiate you and everybody else. When I say macaroni, the way somebody from Jamaica say macaroni, it's going to sound way better than me saying mac and cheese. And not alone. People will be like, oh, you watched that young lady? Which young lady? You know how she say mac and cheese? And they'd be like, yeah, her, And that's a whole stick, So you don't have to work that too hard, but you have to be creative. And the way things are going with artificial intelligence, with AI, the more authentic you can be, The more you can be yourself is going to separate you from AI, because AI is going to do everything perfect. And after a while, we get sick of seeing perfection. You know, we want to see the blemishes. We want to see somebody be themselves. So, and you have to research your market. A lot of times people get concerned like there's so much people that do YouTube, and I will tell you the research, I just was doing some research in this class the other day. 10% of the people who watch YouTube make content. As much content as you see, only 10% of the people make content. But you are you, so don't let that be a discourage. Just be relatable and authentic. You have to ask yourself, do you want to follow the trend or not follow the trend, and understanding these algorithms, that's key. You know, I'm personally, I wouldn't do YouTube for the algorithm. If I just want to spread the message that God led me to spread. If 15 people get it, 15 people get it. You know, if you're here to try to get millions of views, and I get that. I get that. If YouTube is a career and you are a YouTuber, that's fine. But you're going to have to follow the algorithm. But the algorithm have you doing crazy stuff. So let me give you an example. If you ever turn on YouTube and you see all of these weird looks, like somebody going, or they like they look shocked, and you see all these faces, the algorithm is promoting those videos. That's why they're doing it. So this algorithm change, sometimes it can change daily. An example of it changing daily is when, so like the war started with Iran, well, standoff or whatever they're doing with Iran. Well, if YouTube doesn't want you to talk about that, then the algorithm is going to change. So you could be in the algorithm, you can do all those faces, but if you're starting to talk about that and they don't want to promote that, your video's not going to get promoted. So the algorithm changes. You know, a lot lately they've been promoting a lot of AI content, and that's to save them money, because the more they get the people used to seeing AI content, the less they have to pay people, because they can create their own AI content and you don't have to be a part of the partner program, and they save money. I don't think they'll ever be able to get past that, but that's just an example of that. And there are various different platforms. You just want to make sure that, I always say, just to go back to those three things when it comes to production, to wrap it all up, you want to have your pre-production, production, and post-production. How do that look? It depends on who you are, the type of content you're creating, and how large of a production that you are presenting to the people. Cool. And that is it. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you want me to talk about that? The rundown? Yeah. So the rundown is the great thing about, and the question is about, you know, the use of a rundown in pre-production for the service. It is excellent. I live by a rundown, and we used to do a rundown here sometimes, and then sometimes we don't. But I think it's important because there's no surprises, and everything goes out a lot smoothly because everybody is prepared. You know exactly what's going to happen. Now, you may not know what time Bishop is coming in to praise and worship, but you know he's going to come up, and this camera is going to be here, and so that person is going to be prepared to get that camera shot. If somebody's going to do some work with the lighting, or we want to make sure the audio changes, because once, for an example, especially when it comes to audio, the sound completely changes once Bishop is up here talking. At times, you want him to be the loudest voice in the room. And sometimes you may have to bring somebody like Jason down, because Jason is 100% all the time. I see Bishop look at him sometimes and like, you know, go to the See, I done used to it. Go to the strings, you know, and Jason be wide open. His eyes are closed. He don't even see Bishop telling him this. And so when you have a rundown and you have a production meeting, somebody like Jason would benefit and everybody would be in it, because as a technical director, one of the things I would say, okay, once Bishop gets in there and starts talking and he kind of goes, it's not like an altar call, but it's kind of like an altar call before a service. Go to them strings, man, the drummer, bring it down some. And so all of those stuff would be on the rundown so that production would be smooth. Now, if you're sitting in the audience, you're not going to think about it like that. All you're going to know is like, whoo, they changed the mood so easily, so beautifully. It has to be planned because, you know, you want to make sure everything from the top to the bottom, as much as you can. Like I said, you leave room for the Holy Spirit because you never know that's going to take over. But outside of that, you want to have that rundown for every event, kind of timing it out, and so everybody, even us up there, know what's coming next. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Ms. Zay, thank you. All right.